Say, Pluto? While you're lumbering around and routing through all of our personal belongings, do you think you could keep an eye out for the cats? There were 5 last time I counted. Now, if you're thinking that 5 cats is a wholly unreasonable amount of cats to keep on a vessel like this, then we're very much on the same page. As I understand it, there was some sort of mix-up when the Alabaster was assigned a ship pet. The one we received just happened to be pregnant. I am not a cat person, so the sudden appearance of 400% more cat wasn't a welcome addition to my life. Still, I hope they're okay. As much as I hate those self-important furballs, Pistachio really had a soft spot for them. I got on well enough with the rest of the crew. They were good people, you know? Sure, Canary could be a bit abrasive, although Vermilion proved to be a worthy intermediate between the two of us. And it did take a lot of work to get Aubergine out of his room sometimes, but they were good people. Mostly. Pistachio, though? We spent a lot of time together over the last few months. I know she wouldn't have left me here. These anchors, Marmalade had a big part in getting them up and running. You and I are still getting to know each other, but from what I can tell, you two have a lot in common. You're about as talkative as he was anyway. You know, we actually threw him a surprise party a few weeks after we arrived. There were decorations and everything. That might not sound like much, but out here, decorations can be a little hard to come by. We had to make them ourselves. I say we. Pistachio took the lead on that. You never believe it from her personality, but damn, Canary can bake! She made this unbelievable chocolate cake. We all had a pretty great time that night, and we needed it. Marmalade especially. He wasn't in the best place after what happened with the spacewalk. So, during the journey over here, something small collided with the hull. Due to the fact that we were all sound asleep at the time, we can't know for sure what the cause was, but the damage seemed minimal. We were lucky. It could have been worse. Still, we figured the best course of action was to schedule a spacewalk to address the issue. As our only engineer, Marmalade didn't have much of a choice about whether or not to go outside. We have a buddy system in place, and he asked me to spot him. I've done my fair share of spacewalks. I knew what to expect. Marmalade, though, he was nervous. I could see him shaking while we suited up. It went okay at first. I did what I could to reassure him, and I thought he was holding in there. Then he almost got himself killed. Unfortunately, Marmalade's accident was somewhat in vain. Not long after we arrived, I noticed the ship started to slip into a decaying orbit. It seemed likely that it was the result of the damage caused by the collision, so I was hopeful that our repairs would fix the problem. Not so. A few weeks later, it happened again. And again. And again. Not a clue as to why. When I told Vermilion about it, he said it sounded like a car with its wheel alignment off. Whatever that means. Have you ever started to get anxious that you're overlooking an embarrassingly simple solution to a problem? I was there. At one point, I found some old comics that I stacked on a control panel. I almost had a heart attack when I realized what I'd done. It was a relief to find the ship was still drifting after I moved them. Well, you know, kind of. I never did get to the bottom of why the ship was drifting the way it was. Not on my own, at least. Eventually, Canary either got sick of hearing about it, or began to get concerned that I was dropping the ball. She contacted the captain to ask for advice. Not what I would have done, but I got my answer. As it happens, it's a known issue in our model of ship. Crazy, right? More importantly, not my fault. The captain was great about it, too. She could have chewed me out for not reporting it sooner, but she didn't. You could always count on her for that, you know? Not really the iron fist type. A bit of kindness goes a long way. In the wake of Marmalade's accident, it was the captain that sanctioned the extra rations that allowed Canary to bake his birthday cake. She's a good egg. So, on the topic of cake, if the ship were a cake, I would start to express my concern for you about now. That is to say, you're about halfway done. Unlike a cake, though, your ultimate prize will be to clean up whatever mess Marmalade and Aubergine left in the bridge up here. rather than shame mixed with crippling health problems. I'd take my chances with the cake given the choice. Between the dungarees and fast food stickers, something tells me you would too. I feel so cooped up in here. I was never one for Vermilion's mandatory workout regime, but I could really go for a run right now. Stretch the legs, you know? I have the most relentless ache. Oh, nothing like what cryosleep did to me, though. As navigator, it was my job to check we didn't stray too far off course while we slept. I had to wake up every few months to keep us on track. This petty ache is nothing compared to what I felt during those course corrections. Never been a morning person, but that gave a whole new meaning to waking up early. remember, before we all went into cryosleep, we had to check our workstations along with our equipment and whatnot, just to make sure everything was in working order. It's not like if something was damaged, we could just order another. Pistachio wasn't interested in doing any of it. She had this special plant. I should really remember what it was called, as it quickly became the subject of daily conversation. Well, it only flowers something like every 10 years, and this particular plant, it was due to flower on our arrival. She was so excited. She spent all our prep time finding it the perfect spot and making sure it had everything it needed, so that when we arrived, it would be healthy and in full bloom. It never did flower, though. We checked the ship's footage from the flight. We hadn't missed it. It's a shame she never got to see it flower. Since being stuck here, I find myself staring down at the planet for hours on end. You'd think I'd get sick of it, but even now, there's just something about it I can't put my finger on. It just pulls me in. I know what you're thinking. Well, yeah, that's how gravity works. But it's more than that. I don't know. I haven't even told you about the probe yet. We spent weeks building the probe. Canary headed up its construction. The Lantern II, it was called. We were all given a role to ensure its success. Mine was to plan its trajectory and pilot its descent. It felt good to work together on the probe, even if it was Canary overseeing it all. So far, all the information we'd gathered about the planet pointed to it being mostly habitable. It was exciting. We thought we were about to touch down on what could someday be humanity's next colony. Well, as per how we do things here, the probe launch did not go to plan. That's not quite accurate. The launch went fine. It was the landing that left a lot to be desired. probe was crammed with equipment. There wasn't a piece of data this thing couldn't collect. But we wanted more than that. We wanted samples. The plan was that once the probe landed on the planet's surface, it would embark from one end of this ravine to the other. Pistachio chose the location. Along its way, it would collect a variety of samples. Once it reached its destination, it would launch a capsule of the samples into orbit for us to collect. Simple, right? So, back to the launch. All was good until the probe reached the planet's atmosphere, when instead of slowing down, it started speeding up. It just kept accelerating towards the surface. We couldn't do anything about it. We were sure it was going to crash. And then it just seemed to fall straight through the ground. What's more, it kept going. We lost signal maybe a minute later. Canary says the heat from entry must have fried its telemetry or something. My guess is that it was doing its best to get away from her. I'm sure you've been on your fair share of space vessels during your travels. Now, you may have noticed that the Alabaster has more origami swans than your average deep space vessel. Well, let me demystify you on the matter. Origami was one of Pistachio's fondest pastimes. And credit to her, she wasn't half bad. Her augmented hands probably helped her out. She started out making all sorts, but quickly found the swan to be her favorite. We'd find them in the weirdest places. She knew we all laughed about it. We'd be given multiple swans a week, all different sizes and colors. But honestly, that's just Pistachio. Everything she did was in the interest of making us feel good. I miss those swans. To know how this all started. I was just thinking about Pistachio some more. All of this, it started with her. After the failed probe launch, things started to go wrong. Equipment began intermittently acting funky, the ship was drifting more often, and Canary's readings of the planet were all over the place. Then Pistachio just disappeared. And I don't mean she ran off or anything. She literally just vanished. She wasn't on the ship anymore. All her stuff was still here, all the escape pods still in the bay. We searched. All we found were the clothes she was wearing on the floor in her lab. And her hands. It was Canary who first realized the planet had something to do with Pistachio's disappearance. After the probe, Canary increased the number of readings she was taking on the planet. She had seen an increase of anomalous readings across the board right up to the day Pistachio disappeared. Then they just stopped. For a time. Then the anomalies started to crop up again, but faster than before. We had to leave. If the timing of the anomalies before was anything more than coincidental, then we were in danger. I've never prepped a ship for long-distance travel so quickly before. Not that it mattered. We were all set to leave, but when we tried, we realized we couldn't escape the planet's gravity. It was like it had somehow gained mass. And every time we put more power to the engines, the planet would pull back. Only harder. When we realized that we couldn't distance ourselves from the planet, we had an emergency meeting with the captain. She was as reliable as ever, calm and collected. Our first instinct was to use the escape pods, as we thought they might be small enough to escape the planet's pull. She told us to hold tight, though. It was her that reminded us where we were. On the frontier. The middle of nowhere. Sure, we could probably escape, but we'd be light years away from civilization, in a canister, with minimal rations and no cryosleep pods. Besides, what if I was wrong and they couldn't escape the pull either? If we could, we had to keep the Alabaster. Aubergine and Marmalade had started work on something as soon as they realized that we were stuck. They pitched it to the captain in that meeting. They called them anchors. With the captain's permission, Aubergine and Marmalade began their work developing the anchors. They never really stopped to properly explain them to me. Just said that they were designed to block out whatever magic space waves took Pistachio. Oh, that and they're short range. Gotta have them everywhere to cover the whole ship. Canary helped them, running around, performing tests, advising them on this and that. I couldn't help. I'm no engineer, no scientist. What was I supposed to do? To level with you, in that moment, I didn't want to help them anyway. I just lost Pistachio. I couldn't care less about helping ourselves.